Hi there. I welcome you to our Ask Me Anything session, and I'm not alone tonight. I'm joined by two other persons from the R&D. So first, I will present myself for those who doesn't know me. I'm Antony Lesuisse, and I'm a CTO here at Odoo. And my job is mainly taking care of the R&D of Odoo. And the R&D is the people who developed every year new version of Odoo. Actually, every day, new versions of Odoo. And I'm joined by Olivier Denis, who's a long-time employee of Odoo, and maybe you can present yourself in a few words for those who doesn't know you.
Yeah, so I'm Olivier. I'm kind of a old grumpy grandpa in Odoo. I work in many areas, the platform team, so we are running the servers for the SaaS, the cloud platforms. Also, I'm responsible for a lot of security topics, and then any kind of expert issues like performance and different troubleshooting issues within the R&D team. So
okay,
a lot of small things.
And we are also joined by Jerry.
Hello.
Jerry is mostly involved in JavaScript stuff, so maybe you can explain a bit what you do at Odoo.
Yeah, when I came at Odoo, I did not know any JavaScript at all, but I had to learn. So I learned a lot, and I started working mostly on the web client part of Odoo. And let's say that the highlight of the two previous years were the Howl framework. That's our long-term vision to improve the way we write stable and robust user interface code. And this year I worked a lot on the spreadsheet code as well. And I'll probably be answering most JavaScript questions. We'll see.
Okay, so now we are waiting for your questions. And let me check.
Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid.
Oh, the first question is, of course, why Antony doesn't have a keynote this year.
Yeah, why? I don't know.
Why is that, Antony?
Because I was replaced by a blonde girl, I think.
It's a good reason.
By Amy, so actually Amy is going to join us and replace Antony immediately, right?
So, yeah, and we are waiting for your question. If you don't ask any question, maybe we can have...
We'll talk about Antony's vacations, maybe.
Okay, so there is...
Fabien asked why I don't like when people ask why we chose to use to make a new framework Howl instead of using a well-done React framework. I would like to answer to that question. First, it's because it's a very common question. That's why I don't like it. And also, many people suspect that the real answer is that Antony just didn't want to use other tools. And you know, at Odoo we are known to reinvent the wheel. Yeah. So there may be some truth to that, but there are many good reasons. And I invite you to read the Howl repository. There is a page about that topic.
Yeah, and it's a long page that explains.
I try to motivate that. If it doesn't convince you, you may open an issue, and I'll try to answer your specific question.
Okay. Another question is, what are the goals for V15? And so, like we say it every year since maybe 5 years. We won't expand the functional scope, and we will focus on the current application. I think this year we did that, almost did that. We have the new spreadsheet, and also a data cleaning app. But beside that, there are no new apps. There are new features inside of the apps. So we want to continue on that. So focusing on the current apps we have, and we have already something like 40 to 50 different apps, and improving them. But probably one of the focus will be the Discuss apps, because when we entered the lockdown in March, at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, we decided to switch everything remote, and we started to use Discord as a tool to communicate between ourselves, and it worked pretty well, I think. And so we want probably Odoo to be able to to do the same kind of
to replace Discord.
To replace Discord. So it includes better chat, but also everything related to video and audio. And one of my, it's not my dream, but one of the things I would like in the future is that if you use Odoo internally, you will be able to use Discuss, but we also like that people outside of the company could discuss with you, so it would be open to other people. Like I think in Microsoft Teams and Zoom, you have external people in that join. But also, if you have two companies that use Odoo, it would be very easy to communicate.
That's something you talked about.
Yeah. It's something that I talk a lot about, and also, but it's outside just the chat. But we are working on the implementation of PayPal, and PayPal is a European standard, but it works also outside of Europe. It's just a way for business to. It's a protocol to communicate business documents, and the document we are mostly interested in is invoice. And so in the future, if you use Odoo and you confirm an invoice, it will be automatically sent on PayPal if the other person is also alive on PayPal. So it means that if two person runs Odoo, you confirm the invoice, it will automatically appear in the other database. And I think Olivier implemented some kind of EDI many years ago.
Yeah, in version 6.
But we scrapped it. So the good thing with this implementation here is that it's not our protocol, and it will be compatible with other vendors too. So that's one of the things.
Are you done? I was going to the next question.
Okay. Yeah.
So about Discuss, someone asked if we are going to use a WebRTC.
Yeah, we will use WebRTC.
So for the video, you're talking about the video.
Yeah, probably
part,
we will
right?
do a bit like Jitsi. So if you are only two person, we will signal to have a peer-to-peer connection. If it's multiple people, then you will need to relay the traffic.
And I think we should, on that topic, maybe say if we're going to use a WebSocket or not.
Yes, I have a branch. I didn't. It's not yet ready, but we have a branch to replace the long polling with WebSocket. And one of the reasons is that what we do at the moment, we have only one tab that is long polling, and it communicates with the other tab using the local storage. It's a hack.
It's kind of a hack.
And on recent version of Chrome and other browser, they throttle the tabs that are not active, and so you have many problems that arise because of that.
So it's kind of urgent.
Another thing that we will do in V15 is rewriting the list view, the form view, the basic view in the web client using Chrome.
Sano, you're making it official now. Yeah. So yes, for my team, I think the first big focus will be to rewrite the web client, most of the web clients in Audu. Yeah.
What was the hardest part of creating V14?
The hardest part?
Yeah, for you. The spreadsheet,
I think it's mostly coordinating people. It takes a lot of time to discuss with everyone and make sure we are on the same page, because sometimes our boss does not have the same opinion as us, and we need to.
We argue a lot on what should the feature do. For example, for the spreadsheet, we argue a lot about every cell should be independent or not.
There are a lot of discussion about functional aspects and about technical aspects
and
as
about
well.
the implementation.
Yes, well, it's the job, I guess.
But for me, I think the biggest hurdle now that we have a growing team is that, of course, we have to organize, but we have to change the responsibilities, change the development workflow, the life cycle of our features. And for instance, we have switched during the development of version 14 from having a dedicated team write all the upgrade scripts from one version to another, and now it's a responsibility that is spread over every R&D team, and that makes the job more scalable, of course, so we can move faster, and the velocity of the teams is improving. But of course there are lots of moving parts to set up. We have to improve the tooling. So it was a big challenge during the development to have all the upgrade scripts be ready in time
Yeah.
so that we can deploy them. And of course, for my team, where we have to maintain Odoo.com and the platform, we have to upgrade every few months, and then to stabilize it, because you may know that actually deploying on Odoo.com is part of the QA of the master version that we are preparing for the next version. So it's the last step before we put it on the cloud for the customers.
Yeah.
So all of that has been a lot of work during this year.
I forgot to mention that, but for V15, the biggest change will be probably that. And for me, probably the hardest part was to convince people that we will switch to some kind of rolling release way of releasing Odoo. So it means the developer now, when they do a new feature, they have to take care of the upgrade from the previous version to the next. And we don't merge a new feature until we have all the upgrade script ready. Maybe they don't cover everything, but at least we have some tests that under that. So it means that when we freeze a version, we have all the script ready to upgrade from one version to the next. And that's the reason why today you are able already to upgrade from a version to version 14. You can go on upgrade.odoo.com and there is a link to the beta version because it's still in beta. But you type one command and you have your database upgraded. And I already have some news from Denis that told me that people did it successfully. Yeah. So that's a big news. Because for us, if we are able now to have people in production on a new version of Odoo on a 2-month cycles, that's the goal at the moment. On a 2-month cycle, it will speed up the feedback loop we have from our user, because now we ready many features and then we release them and then we have the feedback, and it's very slow. It's like companies before the internet, and now we will have a 2-month speed, so maybe we will be 6 times faster to react to the thing we release and fine-tune them. So that's a very big change.
Yes. Along with that, maybe I can just add a small thing. Along with that is also, when the feature is production ready, we have to make sure that everything is covered, so the upgrade scripts, but now we also want to have the performance integrated as part of that phase, so that when the features are merged, we know that they also have a good performance, which is something that we've suffered a lot. And performance is a recurring topic as we target more and more companies and bigger companies. So all of these things need to be ready when the feature is ready, so that we can have a new release. So that's a lot of things to.
Performance is a very big important focus for next year, both in the UI in JavaScript and in the Python part, the business part, and both on the SQL part but also the Python code. So everything. At the moment, we only have, for example, counter. We count the number of SQL queries and we write it into tests, so that when people change the feature, they have to make sure that they don't introduce extra query for nothing. Maybe it's needed, so it's okay. But now we also introduce a concept of populate. It's just a tool to populate many data to check if I have plenty of data, is the system behaving correctly? And so a lot of work on performance. And that's something people won't notice immediately. You will notice immediately because the program will be more snappy, but it means that maybe people spend hundreds of hours, nothing changed functionally, but it's much better.
Right. Those small improvements, all of them together makes a big difference.
And there was a question about...
Yes, I wanted to point at one.
Yes, the answer is yes. So the question is a job queue feature planned for the framework? Yes, it's planned. There is a pull request already, but I'm not yet totally happy with the current.
So it's coming up for V15.
Yeah. It was supposed to be in V14, but we didn't have time to include it.
But you can look it up on GitHub. There is a pull request from Julien Castio about that.
Could you scroll
actually to scale, you want to scroll up?
Yeah. So, there was a question I wanted to read.
Okay. So for the job queue, it's important because it will for things that take a long time, we will use the job queue. for things that should be short, it will be a simple request. And by doing that, we will be able to limit normal HTTP requests to a shorter time and kill them if they took too much time. And for big job, you would launch a job queue and it's scheduled another way. And also, once we do that, we also want to mark if a request is read-only or read-write. And if it's a request that is read-only, you could direct it to a database server that is replicated and that is a slave. And doing that will allow us to probably scale something like 10 times. Because now we are a 1,000 people company, and we have many customers, mid-sized customer that comes with 1,000 users, 2,000 users, 3,000 users, up to maybe 5,000 users. It's common. And we want to be able to scale up to maybe 50,000 users, and we know that it's possible, but there are a few things to do in the framework to do that. So what was the question?
There's a question about QWeb. Samuel asked if there was any plan to make QWeb code completely the same between client servers.
Yeah.
So for now, we have two implementations. And my answer is that I'm working on converting the server code to JavaScript, but I'm not there yet. So for now, we need two implementations, one for the client, one for the server.
Yeah. There was another question.
There is a small question that I have here from Nias about what is the reason for adding access rights on transient models as well. So that's a good question.
For you.
It's for me especially because I asked for that. Basically, we have a lot of security challenges, and maybe you've watched my talk about that. And this is one of the pain points that we have previously, because you may think that a transient model, basically a wizard model, doesn't hold actual data, so there's no big trouble making it available to different roles inside the company. The thing is that those wizards can give access to different features that will grab data from the system. And basically, there is actually it makes sense to restrict the access to the wizard to separate groups within the company. And it also makes the implementation more similar to real models, which is also something interesting because there are less exceptions in the code and it's easier to understand for new developers because the security model for transient and normal tables is exactly the same. So it's simpler, it's also more flexible in terms of security, so it actually helps to secure the framework.
Okay, I have a question for me. It's are you more developer oriented or business oriented? I would say business, because the final goal is the business. So the decision we take are ultimately driven by the business. But I like technical stuff.
That's true.
Yeah.
The people business.
There was a small UI question about one-to-many.
On a one-to-many field, you cannot filter data.
Why don't we provide a search bar for one-to-many? I don't know why. I think we experimented. I'm not sure.
The thing is that usually a one-to-many is not supposed to have thousands of records.
Yeah, but
because happens. Otherwise you use list view. It's
as a main object. Yeah. But for stocks, for example, for pickings maybe, or I don't know. I think I've seen a large one-to-many views.
Yeah, but
it's
not planned.
Maybe someday.
Do we have a plan to refactor stock? There are many one-to-many. Yes, we have a plan to refactor stock and maybe to remove quants. Because if you saw the new feature on V14 with the dates, the way those data are computed is just by allocating what's entering and what's exiting, and by doing that, we think we could get away with reservation. Maybe not fully, but we are thinking about maybe doing that. And if we are able to do that, maybe we could remove the quant. And those computations will stay performant because you only compute stuff that you have internally, because you can ignore what has been out already. So we think there is something to explore there. And Fabien is very excited about that, but we are not sure we will be able to do that. So that would be a huge change in stock. Odoo can become partner if I promote in your country.
Do we have other questions that we...
Alors, do I develop? I don't develop that much, but I would like to work on the job queue a bit myself, and I would like to work on the HTTP layer with the WebSocket. That's the two things I would like to do. Can you use a cache mechanism? Do you understand that question? About the cache with the... because it's a LRU.
I think it's an answer to another question above. It's the question just above. How is it feasible and good or bad to create non-Odoo fields in Odoo model class to store connection objects? Like remote objects?
No, it's like when you hijack a record set to store some temporary data. Probably. So you have a record set, and then you use a new attribute to store something else.
Maybe.
But it's a hack.
There is a question from Fabien. I don't think we can ignore him, or should we?
I don't know.
He's asking if end users will see a difference performance-wise between the new framework OWL, between the state of the workline before and after, I assume. The answer is yes, but again, it depends. If all you're doing is just looking at a small screen like a list view or a form view with not a big one to many, you will not see as much a difference performance-wise. But however, if you are looking at a very big pivot view, for example, or some kind of big element, you will see a bigger difference. But in my opinion, the biggest change is for developers. You will see a higher speed of development from developers, not of the code, even if it will be, but for developers as well.
And one thing that is interesting for developers also, as part of that big checklist of things that we have to be ready whenever a feature is merged, is about security as well, because using OWL means that you will have less manual JavaScript manipulation of the DOM to do. So there is less chance of introducing those horrible XSS issues that I'm fighting all year long. So that's something nice. Of course, it's not a silver bullet, because there is always a way to introduce
issues,
security problems in your code, and you need to be aware of that at every step. But it's a good step forward to avoid those. Every time we make things more declarative and less procedural in the JavaScript code and in the Python code, it helps simplify the job of the developers, and they have less boilerplate code to work, so they make less mistakes.
I think that's one of the big points. Because before OWL, you had to instantiate yourself every widget and then to coordinate them together. And it's kind of it needs a lot of experience to do that properly. If you mess it up, you may be some race condition, or it may be some lot more difficult. And it will help a lot with that, of course, obviously.
Okay,
there was a
question,
it's called up. Okay, never mind. If I find it, I'll tell you.
Okay. There was a question about better search bar.
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which search bar you're talking about, but maybe you're talking about the home menu search bar. And I think it's a big topic. Maybe Antony has a lot of...
So the one in the app switcher.
I suspect
in the app switcher, yes, we want to improve it so that you could jump, because at the moment it's just a grep in the menu.
You can just, in your home menu, you can just type a few letters and you'll find a list of menus, yes.
So yes, if we could expand it so that you could jump on direct object, we would like to do that also. And there is also another feature that probably we will do this year. It's full text search. For example, if you, it's for example in helpdesk, if you have tickets and you want to search not only on the body of the ticket itself, but maybe on the chatter conversation about it, you would like to type stuff, even with fuzzy search and get back the records.
So if you talk about full text search, are you planning to integrate tools like Elasticsearch?
No, probably in
into
Postgres we will use.
Postgres has an extension for that. Yes, right.
We would use that. So that's something that is planned, but there are no task yet.
It's not a commitment.
Yeah.
And
also somebody was asking, will we deprecate jQuery and jQuery UI? Yes.
jQuery UI
that's
as
sure.
soon as possible.
Yeah.
And jQuery, all our new code avoid using jQuery, but there are so much code that we will not remove it for sure for a long time.
Oh, any plan to use some modern JS bundler?
I wish we made some experiments about improving our toolings and the way we manage assets, but there is really no official plans that we can talk about.
And of course, I don't want Odoo to depend on external dependency unless it's a Python library or something like that. So we are restricted to what we have to generate the assets.
It's a difficult topic.
Because most of the web apps, you compile them and it's okay. For Odoo, it's different because it's multi-tenant. Every database can have its own sets of modules, so the bundle has to be different.
Yeah, we don't know at development time what the final JavaScript code will be. So it's kind of more difficult here.
Are XML view going to disappear in favor of Q web view soon? No, not for the form view, the list view.
You should read the questions because I'm not sure everyone knows what you're talking about.
Okay, so yeah, they was asking if we deprecate XML views instead of just QWeb view, but no, we will keep separate views for list, form, pivot, because they require another syntax. It's not just a QWeb template. It's just the Kanban view, which is a small snippet of HTML that use the QWeb syntax.
Daniel asked an interesting question. Can we have an uninstall command from the command line?
Okay,
it makes sense in my opinion.
Yeah, we wanted to do that. So we would like to revamp the Odoo command line.
For the 10th time.
And we made some draft specification, but we are never happy with it. It's like Git, Git, they try to, improve the Git subcommand, and we would like to have Odoo server if you want to run the server, and then Odoo create a database, something like that. But nobody has a specification that everybody sees and say, oh yes, it's nice, it should be that way. So we are stuck.
That's a problem when we don't have an agreement. Yeah. Sometimes there are the ideas floating around for months or years, and we still are not sure how to proceed.
Oh, there's a question about the editor. When is Summer Node going to be replaced?
Yeah,
we have good news.
Soon, I think. But what we did, because it was not yet ready, we prepared the way so that we can bundle it anyway in V14, but it's not yet bundled. So the goal is also to have an editor and a framework for the future, because we want to add many features in the WYSIWYG editor. For example, I forgot the name of this application, but we would like to add / subcommand. So, for example, everywhere where you have a rich text field, for example, in task, you could have a rich text field. You would be able to do / something and add a checklist and stuff like that to have some more dynamic behavior in rich text field and have it everywhere. And we would like also those rich text field to be cooperative. So if you have multiple persons, at the moment, if you want this behavior, you can enable the path, for example, on task, and instead of an HTML area, you have a native path that is embedded into Odoo. But we'd like to have that natively. And also the spreadsheet needs to be multi-edit.
Multi-users, that will be, I guess, a big focus for the BI team, yes.
There's a question I like.
Yeah.
Pep Gen 2 says that as a newbie developer,
Yeah.
it is difficult to find, in this case, it's the XPath expression to locate a node. And he's asking, it says using Odoo Odoo Studio to help find the path, but if he's asking if we have any plans to release a tool to find that. Basically, my point is that it's this kind of feedback is very useful because we are like too close to the code and we're too used to our tools. So whenever, as a newcomer to the Odoo framework and the Odoo ecosystem, you find things hard to find, to understand. It is kind of a long-term goal that we have to simplify the tools and help newcomers smoothly find their way into our framework and our tools. So this is the kind of feedback we want to hear about. So be sure to let us know when you have questions like that. And for that specific question, actually finding the proper path that suits your situation is a super complicated issue because you don't. There are several paths to locate a node, and the one you want to use depends on your situation, what kind of modularity, inheritance you expect to have, the performance of the expression that you want. So it's not a simple question, but it's definitely a good question to ask. So that's the kind of feedback we want to hear about.
And related to that, we are working on a new documentation. So because this year we hired, I don't know, 50 or 70 people.
We have
many people. So we have to onboard a lot of new developers, but we want also worldwide to have Odoo to be more accessible to new developers. So we want to make sure that somebody who comes from the Java world or anywhere wants to start developing on Odoo quickly can start developing. And we are rewriting a tutorial and we are rewriting the documentation, making it clear both for us internally and for other.
So you said it was not clear before.
It was not.
It wasn't as clear as it should be, as it could have been maybe. But we're making progress.
And so we now have a team dedicated to that, and they will. So we are first implementing the tutorial, but we will rework also the reference, and we will also change the table of content of the technical documentation.
I think it's very important because once we have a good basis, and all those newcomers in the Odoo world internally may take the habit to update the documentation. And once it's done, it's well done.
And the next step will be probably to improve the tooling of developers. So for example, many developers in-house, they use Visual Studio. VS Code. And at the moment, if you use Odoo, both in Python and in JavaScript, the editor doesn't know about add-ons path, for example. So it cannot complete things. Or if you use object, you use env.something, and it cannot auto-complete the method. So probably we would like to, at some point, have
better editor support.
I think you can make a small server that runs, and Visual Code ask this server for typing heuristics, and it gives you the right. I'm an old school guy. I'm still using VI, so
I'm pretty sure it's the same for Sublime Text and maybe other editors, probably.
So that's something we would like to do. So maybe also we were discussing about you use env and you have to type the string of the object you are using. So maybe we could remove the dictionary and have a real object.
I think there is a question from Oscar that you cannot avoid. We should not avoid, maybe. Oscar said, ask Olivier.
Oh yeah. About yesterday. What did happen yesterday?
I think you can take a few minutes.
So you probably noticed that the website was unavailable for a long time, like 1 or 2 hours. Or available at some point and then not available. So we had it was actually 3 main issues together with many people, and we struggled to find the issue, but it's solved now, and today was you could not notice it, but we can explain a bit the issue we had. So we had 3 issues. One of them was a bug in a compute field. So the compute field was used both for a store and a non-stored field. So every time it was read, because the field was unstored, it was writing the two other fields and storing them. So every time somebody was reading an event on the website, it was writing the event. That was one of the.
So every request that was displaying anything related to Odoo experience, basically all the hits that we were having on the website, were actually also writing and updating the same event record on the database. So of course that was a big bottleneck that we kind of quickly solved, but it actually triggered a very unusual situation in the Postgres database that kind of amplified the issue another tenfold. So it took a lot more time to stabilize that part. So that's basically something that we can fix in the framework to catch that error and prevent doing that in the first place. But the fact that it caused an amplification is not directly related to Odoo there, but that's the kind of thing that happens when you have a huge load suddenly. But that was just part of the issue. Then we had other amplification problems. One of them was the activation of the progressive web app. So basically, Odoo Experience is also a progressive web app for the event that you can install on your mobile phone. And as part of this, the definition of that web app, the service worker that technically implements it was configured to preload all the talks from the event as soon as you accessed the event page for the first time. So many visitors were arriving because of a pop-up or a notification or a reminder to join the keynote. But at that same moment, the service worker was in the background triggering and harvesting all the talks. So like it was like 200 or 300 extra requests that every visitor was doing it. So that was another amplifying effect. And then there were other issues with the performance of there were some missing indexes. What else
and rewriting URLs. And
we had also some performance issues in the way the website engine was working for rewriting URLs that appear in the QWeb output for a page. Yeah. And typically the Odoo Experience pages contain all the track URLs, so that there are actually a lot of rewriting to do. So all of these issues actually occurred yesterday and did not occur in the previous stress testing that we had, including our big event just 1 week before with the whole company.
So we did a dry run with 1,000 users. All the employees were supposed to play the game, but we didn't.
And actually, one of the challenges there was to have the live survey system scale enough to be able to handle thousands of users. And actually, that was optimized last time, and everything went smoothly, and that was actually never the problem. Yeah. And it's always like that. You fix all of the big bottlenecks that you find, and then there's always one hidden lurking in a corner that just happens to trigger when you press the right spot at the right time.
But the good news is that now, I think today we were around maybe 10% of the capacity we could handle. So it means that we can handle a very large amount of people.
So we should be okay for next year.
Yeah, it should be okay. And the question of Karan about non-ORM fields, I can exactly reply. So yes.
So what's the question?
So the question is that you have a record set and you add an attribute to store something. And now it's not possible anymore because Raphael did that as a check, because people was sometimes mistyping field's name, and now it raised an error or a warning, and it's not possible anymore to do that. So
sorry, it's intended.
A question about USH. Workers are in threaded mode. Yes. Is it to save resource? Yes, a bit, but it's also different because when you are on Odoo SH, it's your own code and your own database that is running in your container, so it's your stuff. And when you are on Odoo Online, everybody is on the same Odoo server, so we don't want also people that do stupid things to affect other customers. Here, if you do something wrong, you affect yourself. So that's one of the reasons also. And POS is using all, yeah. Are you planning to implement async await concurrent on the server side? Yes and no. No, we don't plan to do that. But maybe just for the probably not for the long polling worker. But no, it's not possible because the long polling worker is able actually to handle every kind of request, and because the rest of the business code must be able to do an I/O at any point. So it would require changing all the code of Odoo. So no, it's not yet. It's not planned. If we limit the long polling to just the chat, we could do it. Any plan to in the midterm or future?
Well, there's a subsequent question about the outage yesterday, and saying that Paolo is saying that of course people didn't know what to do because there was no waiting message, and of course that's a big issue. And I'm not sure that even having a status page or a better handling of the issue is better in the sense of telling people that it's down. What we needed to do was to make sure that there was something up that was useful for everyone. So also one of the plans that we implemented during the night was to have like a plan B or plan C, where if today there were new issues, new bottlenecks that we didn't fix during the night, we had another plan where the website would switch to a kind of a fallback mode with a static page, but that contained everything, including all the schedule of the talks, all the timing, all the URLs to the YouTube links, to the YouTube videos. So having that is a much better default than just having a status page or something like that. And that's definitely what we should have done in the first place. Yeah. But we were kind of misled by the dry run we had, the rehearsal we had the previous week, which made us think that actually our capacity was much more was quite sufficient for the kind of load we were expecting. But that was without counting. It was actually the case, but that was without taking into account these few spots that were actually going to be blocking points.
Fortunately, we didn't have to use the plan B.
Actually, the plan B is still working. We're still waiting in the box because we didn't use it, which is good.
Okay.
Pablo asks a question about OWL.
Yeah.
Will it be possible to write an entire Odoo frontend using OWL, or is it just a minimal library whose unique purpose is to replace the old Odoo widgets? Yeah. That's the second part is what we're planning to do. It's just a user interface framework. If you want to interact with the Odoo client, you'll need to write code to manage sessions, RPCs and stuff like that. Well, it's not that much that you're missing.
Will PWA, so Progressive Web App, work on Odoo with the OWL framework? Yeah, it's not really related. PWA is more related to the way you load the data and you cache them, so it's not really related.
What manifests and stuff.
But what we want to do probably is improve the way the point of sale works to make sure that if you use it as a Progressive Web App, it will work and you will be able to restart a session even without the server. That's something we would like to do. And I say that because the point of sale is already converted into they say ask them a tricky question, they feel too at ease now. Yeah. Dynamic. Any plan to dynamic labeling of fields in form, especially for
I had that request.
What do they mean by dynamic labeling?
I guess it's some kind of TATT value in a form.
But what you can do is to use a read-only field.
Yes.
A read-only
or form widgets maybe, but you cannot actually. Can you change the name, the label in the form view, you know?
No, you don't change the label.
If you
want a regular field and you display it like a label.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a hack, but yes, that's the way it works. I know.
Yeah. And why not design a grouped one-to-many and remove the section? Yeah, that's a discussion we had a lot about the way we implement section in sales order and invoice, and we do it in the same table instead of having some kind of group by. And it has advantage because, for example, you can make 3 sections, empty section. That's something you cannot do if you use group by. And that's something you could do in real life, like doing a section, it's empty, and then another section, it's empty. On my, I have an attribute that appear on most of my Okay.
So there are 2 sentences to that question.
Yeah. Okay.
All values for.
No, I don't understand the question.
But there's a question just above that first.
Yeah. Do you get a roadmap for the migration of the entire code and finally ditch Internet Explorer 11 supporting?
We don't really have strong commitment about migration, refactoring, or actually any kind of work, because sadly in the software world it's really difficult to guess how much time takes something that when it's kind of new. In this case, my personal guess is that my team is going to work a lot on migrating the web client to Audu. I assume it will take something from 3 to 6 months, and then we'll see. It's really difficult to say it now.
But we hope that probably next year everything.
I'm really hoping for next year. Yeah.
What happened recently with? Okay.
There's a question about the Italian localization, and so Leonardo is asking, is saying that in Italy we have huge issues with the localization.
Yeah.
Will Odoo help us in the future?
Yeah.
And actually, Jost Colpart is answering the chat, and he's actually the one person you want to talk with about the localization issues you have in Italy. So Leonardo, you're in touch with Jost now.
I can explain that now. I think with the basic accounting stuff is. We are happy with it, and most of our work will be on localization and stuff like that. So, for example, this year we introduced a framework to it's a framework in accounting itself to standardize the way people do EDI-like stuff. Because in many countries now you have to send your invoices to the government and to have it validated so that they are valid. And every country has its own way of doing things. Every country has its own format, its own protocol. But we now have a standard way, and you just implement the missing method in every localization.
To make it easier.
Yeah, to make it easier. And we did Mexico, mostly it's Latin American. So Mexico, Ecuador, Chile, Argentina, all those countries. And probably it will come to every other country at one point. Negative credit and debit, it's used in it's Storno accounting, and we don't support it yet. But probably we will support it one day. Yeah.
So that was to answer the question from Nasser about the OADA accounting.
Yeah, you should read the question.
Is there no option to refund an online payment in Odoo? Non-line payment.
Oh, it means that in the payment integration there is no feature in the backend to trigger a refund through the payment API.
Oh, if you use also this year we introduced, but it's not yet announced because it's not yet published. I don't know if we merge already the module, but we will announce a new payment system. It's actually Edian by Odoo, so it's Edian, and we are some kind of reseller of Edian, but most of the thing happen directly with Edian. But Edian doesn't take small customers; they only take big customers. But they accept to take all the Odoo customers because we made a deal with them. And they are the most cheap payment processor probably in the world. And we had to implement a UI also to handle all the refund and all the stuff. And if you use that, I promise you it will be very easy to set up. So out of the box, you install Odoo, you fill all the forms, and you can start to sell, and you will be able to do everything, including refund payments. Alors, will the additional documentation about technical settings in Odoo? No, I don't think so. Because we want to document, more basic stuff first before that. Yeah?
I think he's asking about settings that are hidden in the technical.
Oh, yeah.
I think we did some change about that,
yeah.
Right?
Okay, so in the menu technical settings with all the objects, probably.
I don't know. I guess.
Okay. How do you ensure Odoo security? So your system cannot be hacked in the network. Vivier.
The question about the security of Odoo. So
well,
how the system cannot be hacked in the network.
Yeah.
Well,
It's a little vague.
that's a
yeah.
big topic, but basically there are so many parts of the framework that are designed to make sure that the security model of Odoo is enforced and that the ACLs and rules that you define in the security settings are enforced for every data access. So we have to make sure that we don't expose any feature over the network that would not respect these security properties, and that's what we do. We have features in the framework, in many places in the templating system of QWeb, where we try to avoid XSS issues. In the framework for accessing the database, where we try to avoid SQL injection. So there are a lot of features designed in the system to make sure that the security is enforced at every step. But of course, in security, everything is about where is the weakest link in your system, in your deployment. So the first thing you have to do when you are deploying Odoo is to go look at the documentation about deployment, go look at the checklist we have in our documentation about security, how you can make sure that your database is correctly configured, your web server is correctly configured in front of Odoo, your network is secure, you don't put production data next to staging and development data, you don't mix the two environments. So there is a big checklist of many things that you want to check before you put an Odoo system live on the internet. Or if you're not sure, you just go on the cloud of Odoo, and normally we take care of all of that for you.
Okay. Any plan to have automated action calling a webhook? Yeah, at the moment you cannot make an HTTP request inside of your server action, I think.
No, it's not enabled by default. Mostly for security reasons again, but it's actually easy to do. You can expose the requests module in your server actions. Actually, there is a change that we did in version 14.
The way you export modules.
The way modules are exposed in the server action. So that's something that we haven't advertised very much, but it's actually for me a very important point in the security of the system. And a good improvement in version 14 is that the safe eval mechanism that we have for evaluating small pieces of code with the business logic and the things that you can customize in the business logic and that are used for many things inside Odoo. This mechanism, safe eval, receives a context of evaluation, and we used to allow passing any kind of context there, including modules that then the business code could use. But that's a kind of a very dangerous practice, because modules sometimes expose access to very low-level system things that allow you to escape the sandbox. So it's actually something that requires closely watching the evolution of the modules, because from one version to the next, even the core library of Python can suddenly expose within a module that used to be perfectly safe. Suddenly it exposes another module as an attribute at the module level that exposes very dangerous features. So as of version 14, we are now forbidding entirely to pass a raw Python module as a parameter for a safe eval context. So you now have to use a mechanism that we provide that allows you to wrap the module and only authorize access to the functions of the module that you actually need to use. So typically for the request module, you would only want to expose the post and get methods, basically anything, the only thing that you need to use from that module. But otherwise, to come back to the question, it's just as simple as adding the request module to the evaluation context, and then you can perform RPC calls from your server actions. You just have to be very careful that server actions are going to be executed synchronously as part of your business logic. So if you add network delays in there, you are just blocking the whole worker processing the request as long as the request doesn't complete. So you have to take care of timeouts, errors in the communication. So that's a lot of moving parts to put in the business logic in the server action. So you want to be careful with that. But if it's as part of a cron job, then maybe it's fine.
Okay. There is a question, is there a technical certification? No, there's no technical certification, official technical certification of Odoo. Another question was, how do you ensure the security in the templating engine, like the QWeb engine, like the web pages? And at the moment, there's no way to ensure security, so you must trust people who write QWeb, Python QWeb template. And that's the reason why if you give right to edit web page and execute QWeb code, you have to trust people.
Yeah, and anybody allowed to modify views and server. It's the same as being allowed to edit server actions, basically. Because if you are allowed to edit the web page, a web page is the same. You can put JavaScript code. Yeah. So even if you couldn't access directly the database, you could actually put some JavaScript code that would capture and steal the session of other visitors, including the admin when the admin comes. Yeah. So actually, you cannot trust these features to anybody that is not a very high person in the company.
On the server side, you would still be able to hijack on the client.
I think we just have 1 minute left. So, is there any quick question?
Oh yes, there's one thing about ADN by Odoo, where Daniel noticed that
it's merged.
It's merged, but actually only the add-on part that is in Odoo standard is merged. But we need also a component on the Odoo.com website to interact with it, and that part is not deployed yet. So the V14 module is not fully activated yet, but it's going to be done shortly.
Okay. So we will provide. Do we need to conclude here? Yeah. Totally. Okay. So thank you for following us, and I hope to see you in real next year. But hopefully. We will probably do a mixed remote and real event. And thank you, Olivier and Jerry, to join me in this session.
And they're asking where they can contact us.
Where they can on if you do pull requests. Stuff like that, you can do it on GitHub. But otherwise, my email is al@odoo.com, odo@odoo.com, and jed@odoo.com.
Yeah, or email are not difficult to find.
Yeah.
But we receive a lot of emails, so maybe the best is to do something on GitHub. An issue, a pull request is the best way to have something that will be found. And we have great community moderators that help us find the hidden gems that we missed. So.
Okay, see you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.